Imagine waking up one day and realizing you don't like your life anymore. A lot of people get this epiphany almost every day, and most of them make simple changes to improve the quality of their lives. They either go back to school, find a new job, move to a new country, or do whatever they can to get a fresh start. Chris Watts had this epiphany and decided that the life he had built wasn't for him. However, he did not do any of these things. Instead, he murdered those who loved him the most so he could start a new life. The Watts family murders became very popular and took over social media back in 2018. There was a missing woman, 2 missing children, and a hunt for the suspect. Chris Watts, the husband, will later admit to killing them all. From the look of his wife's Facebook page, they had the perfect life and the perfect marriage. Nobody could have predicted what was about to happen. This is the case of Chris and Shanann Watts. In 2010, Shanann was going through a lot in life. She had just divorced her first husband and was diagnosed with lupus, an autoimmune disease. She was doing her best to build herself back up, and she managed to buy her first house. Then, she got a friend request on Facebook from Chris Watts. They later started texting each other and hit it off right away. They got married 2 years later and moved to Colorado. After a year, they gave birth to their first child, a little girl called Bella. 2 years later, which is in 2015, Celeste was born. She goes by Cece for short. Shanann had health complications and never thought she could have kids, so she was super excited to be a mom. At this point, Chris and Shanann started having issues in their marriage. Shanann started working for a multi-level marketing scheme called Lavelle and sold a weight loss supplement called Thrive. Almost half of the people that signed to the scheme dropped out in the first year because they were unable to make enough money. But Shanann joined the 3% of sales personnel that actually made a living wage out of the scheme. Chris worked as an oil field operator at a petroleum company and made just over $5,000 a month. With all these income streams coming in, you would expect the Watts family to be doing pretty well for themselves, right? Well, not so much. You see, a month before Cece was born, they had to file for bankruptcy. Even with both Chris and Shanann's salaries, they were unable to manage paying their debts, which included a $3,000 monthly mortgage, student loans, credit card debt, and medical bills. On top of this, their girl suffered from major allergies that meant they had to take expensive medication regularly. But even with all this going on, the family looked perfect from the outside. Shanann spent a whole lot of time on social media because of her job. She had to promote her product and entice new sales reps, so her page was always busy. She also had to convince people that she had the perfect life because of the products. You can even go to her Facebook page now and you will see all the videos she took with her family and personal stories about her life and struggles and how Chris changed her life for the better. It's really sad when going through her Facebook page knowing how the story ends. Things really started going downhill for the Watts family during the summer of 2018. But Shanann didn't know this yet. In June 2018, Shanann went live on Facebook and told Chris they had exciting news. They were expecting another baby. In the video, Shanann was wearing a t-shirt that said, "Oops, we did it again," and filmed Chris coming home to the surprise. Chris looked excited and nervous at the same time. But then, if you're planning to divorce your wife, it's not surprising to feel this way, right? Well, he said that's awesome, but his reaction was quite underwhelming. Apparently, it was around this time that he had started seeing his mistress. Nicole Kasinger testified she started seeing Chris around June 2018 and didn't know he was married. However, according to the police, it looked as though they were definitely getting to know each other as early as September 2017, which is earlier than she claims. Even though Chris's phone records showed that he saved Nicole's contact early 2018. They also found that during this time, Nicole was Googling Chris and the name Shanann Watts. So the fact that Nicole did not know Chris was married could not be true. According to Nicole, Chris was much invested in their relationship than she was. But once again, her search history said otherwise. Including looking up Chris and Shanann a bunch of times, Nicole asked Google if cops can trace your text messages and if people hate hated Amber Frey. A little backstory about Amber Frey. She was the girlfriend of Scott Peterson, a man who was found guilty of murdering his pregnant wife while cheating with Amber Frey. Shanann could sense that something was wrong with her husband. She reached out to her friends for advice. She said Chris wasn't communicating with her and didn't want to be physical with her anymore. She flew out to her parents' home in North Carolina with her 2 daughters during the summer for a 5-week vacation. Chris stayed back at home to work, and Shanann expressed her frustration over his lack of communication during this time. He did not even call to talk to his daughters. This was because he was spending every day with Nicole, taking her on exciting dates and out to nice restaurants. He also told her that he was finalizing his divorce and soon he will be a free man and they can be together forever. In reality, he hadn't even started taking out the paperwork. Chris flew out to spend the last week with his wife as planned. Shanann texted his friends and told her that Chris did not even kiss her when he met her at the airport. She suspected he was having another relationship behind her back, but she did not confront him about it. Around this time, Nicole was Googling wedding dresses and was basically convinced that it was possible her and Chris could get married soon. Things escalated when Chris told Shanann he did not want another baby and that he was happy with the way things were. This shocked Shanann because Chris was in on them having another baby before they conceived. Right after that, Shanann got into a huge fight with Chris's parents. This was because Chris's mom was eating something that the girls were allergic to around one of the girls, and she ended up eating some. Because of the fight, Chris's parents uninvited themselves from Celeste's birthday party. She was upset with Chris because during the fight, he did not stick up for her or stand up to his mom when she was saying all sorts of things to Shanann. They were not talking to each other at this point, and Shanann had to cancel her gender reveal party when she found out that their next baby was going to be a boy. On the 9th of August, Shanann went for a 3-day work trip and Chris stayed home to look after the kids. According to Shanann's phone records, she and Chris had a really good talk over the phone while she was away, and she was feeling hopeful about their relationship again. What she did not know was Chris was still going on romantic dates with Nicole. On 13th of August, Shanann returned home just before 2 a.m. and she was never seen alive again. Later that morning, Shanann's close friend Nicole Alkinson got worried when she couldn't get a hold of Shanann. She had a doctor's appointment and her friend was supposed to drive her to the hospital. Nicole called the police to perform a wellness check. She was very worried because Shanann was pregnant and had health problems. The police arrived to a house that looked abandoned and there were no signs of Shanann or the girls. They called Chris to come home from work so they could search the house. The police body cam recorded the interaction between Chris and the police. The body cam showed a neighbor telling the police that Chris is acting suspicious. He wasn't keeping eye contact with the police officers and kept telling the police what he was putting in his truck when they were watching the neighbor's security camera replay what happened the night Shanann came home. What was more chilling was his lack of concern for his missing wife and children. There was an intense search for Shanann and the girls in Colorado, but people were already suspicious of Chris from the beginning. And for some weird reason, he gave a live TV interview which appeared to be cold with no emotions. This rubbed people the wrong way, especially the way he was referring to his wife and kids. On August 14th, investigators brought in Chris for questioning. He lied about ever cheating on his wife and claimed to not know where they were. On August 15th, investigators already knew he was cheating on his wife and they brought him back to take a lie detector test and for further questioning. He willingly took a lie detector test and failed miserably. After being told he failed the test, they brought his father in to speak to Chris alone. He confessed to his dad that he caused Shanann's death but the detectives were listening and the conversation was being recorded. The story he gave was that when Shanann came home, he told her he wanted a divorce, and in response, Shanann smothered their daughters. Then in a fit of rage, he strangled Shanann and took all three of them to the oil field where he worked to dispose of their remains. He wrapped Shanann in a blanket and put her in a shallow grave. Then he put Cece and Bella into two separate oil tanks. He was arrested and charged with 3 first-degree murders that day, and their remains were found the next day. Despite his story that Shanann had ended the lives of their daughters, he was charged on all counts. The police did not believe the story for a second. It simply did not make sense that he would dispose of them like that if he had nothing to do with it. He maintained his story until the trial, during which he confessed to killing all of them. He was found guilty of 5 counts of murder, 2 each for Celeste and Bella because they were under the age of 12. He was also found guilty of an unlawful termination of a pregnancy for causing the death of his unborn son, Nico. This was such a picture-perfect family, and it kind of showed us that this type of thing can happen to anyone. At Chris's sentencing, Shanann's family came to give impact statements. They could not believe what Chris did, but they also asked the court not to give him the death penalty. There is no way Chris will be able to harm anyone again with his 5 consecutive life sentences with no possibility of parole. You will find a longer version of the Chris Watts documentary on Netflix. You can check it out if you like. This is the end of the sad case. What do you think? I can't wait to see your thoughts in the comment section below. Thank you so much for watching the video today by Novi Briefs. If you find this video interesting, please don't forget to give this video a like. And if you haven't yet, please subscribe to Novi Briefs. I'll be waiting for you in the next video. Until then, please take care of yourselves and each other. Goodbye.